Hello, welcome back to Seasmith, welcome back to the channel and back to another video. Today you join me somewhere a little bit different, Cornwall. I'm back down again for the Christmas period. A lot of you will know that I come down here a few times a year due to my partner, my girlfriend originally being from Cornwall, and we often travel down this way to visit her family and friends. So we're back down for the Christmas period, Monday to Friday. Today is Thursday. And I've managed to sneak away during the festive period for a few hours of fishing on the River Fal, somewhere that I've been really excited to fish for a long time and haven't until this day actually had the chance to do it, even though you would have seen from my video actually last year, I think one of my first videos I put up, we started off in Truro in my little sib dip and took a little trip down to Malpas just to kind of visit the history and check things out. But if you haven't seen that video, check it out. Today though, we're fishing. Now, a lot of you, I'm sure, that are local will recognise this mark, but we are a fair way up the River Fal actually, at King Harry Ferry, which has just finished up. I've timed my visit to fish the pier next to it, just as the last Boxing Day trip across the river has finished, which means I've got a nice clear, empty patch of water to fish. And I've got to say, it's probably one of the most eerie venues I've ever fished. I mean, it's a pitch black river. I can't see anything, even if I turn the lights off. If I let my eyes settle, I'll probably see a little bit, but it is dead silent and pitch black. And what's I think a little bit creepy is that I know there's some big monsters that lurk in the River Fal. Some big eels, some big huss, all sorts. So that's what I'm after today, by the way, too. Now, I'm just going to get my rods and rigs set up, and as I do, I'll talk you through what my tactics for the day are. Right, well, that's rig number one, ready to go. That is a simple pulley pennel setup on with a bluey bait, a whole bluey that's been top and tailed, on a pulley pennel with about 2 or 3 foot of wire trace, which is going to get sent out now in hope of a good bull huss or an eel. Now, it should be said that the reason I'm staying quiet is because, of course, I am on a jetty, so I am over the water, kind of above the water, of course, that I'm wanting to fish. So I've got my head torch. I'm trying to keep it as low and as kind of low light as possible, keep the sound to a minimal, and also I've got my big lamp, which you might have seen in a few videos of mine, which, by the way, is a brilliant piece of kit, not only for filming but just for fishing in general. But I've got all that on the floor, facing upwards, so it's only kind of lighting me and my rods and kind of the background a bit. But I'm also facing that way, my rods are that way, so anything that's lurking down there, I'm not disturbing. Well, I'm trying my best not to anyway. Right, well, that's one rod in, that's the big rod. The second one is going to be a scratching rod. Let's get that set up. And the second rig that's going out is a very simple 2-hook flapper with size 2 hooks on some salted lugworm that I dug in the last week or two back down in Poole Harbour in Dorset, and it's left over from a session. I've salted it down and it makes a great little worm bait that you can keep in the freezer for a situation like this. I'm just going to put a little bit of worm on a baiting needle, stick it on the hook. Now, they do get quite small when you salt them, but when they get hydrated again, they kind of get a bit bigger. I don't gut them either. I don't find the need to, and I prefer to not gut the worms that I dig, actually, because they just retain more of their juices and fluids and obviously attract fish. So I'd definitely rather not do that. I know some people prefer to, but for me, I don't. There we go. That is baited up with a bit of salted lug, small bit of worm really, on a very small hook. And we're going to chuck that down there, scratch around for a little bit, see if it can't pick us anything up. Even if it's a little whiting or something like that from down here. We might just save the blank, who knows. Alright, I don't know if you saw, guys, on that right hand side rod, I haven't got the tip lights on, but the bluey rod, the big bait, it just has some nice little thumps on it. So we know we're dealing with life, that's for sure. There's fish here, which is good. Right, let's get those tip lights on. Hopefully you guys can see any movement in the rods. we're all set. Both rods in, tip lights are on, we're fishing. It's always exciting at a new mark, a new venue, a completely new area to be fishing in, especially in such eerie settings as this. Now, where I don't really have much of a choice in terms of tides or timing to fish it, I'm only here for 5 days, and this is literally the only evening I could squeeze out a few hours in between seeing all the family and friends and doing all the Christmas festivities. So I'm just pleased to be able to get a few hours in, and if I catch a fish, then really it's a bonus. But I feel confident. I do feel confident. I mean, I'm always blindly optimistic when it comes to fishing, to be honest. Sometimes foolishly, but it is what it is. But for the whole week that I've been in Cornwall, there's been this really fine kind of mist. It's almost like there's been a low kind of cloud level that's been just sat on top of the land. So it's felt like we've been living in a cloud all week. So although everything's been really damp and misty and moist and wet, we've not really had much rain, which gives me a bit of confidence, because I do know from fishing at home that any estuaries or harbours, Poole Harbour, Christchurch Harbour, when we've had a lot of rainwater, and the salt levels of course are very low in the estuaries, and there's lots of fresh water in there, then quite often the saltwater species can be difficult to target. Well, we've had no rain this week. Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to be in my favour. But the fact that within minutes I've had bites is, I'll take that. Okay, the right tip light needs replacing, the battery, sorry. So I'll do that on the next cast in. But I'm just getting some tapping bites now on the left rod, which is the worm bait. Now, I'm not too annoyed if I do catch any small, oh, there you go, there's a nice pull down. If I do pull in like a nice little whiting or something, I can chuck that out as another conger bait. Yeah, I'm not too unhappy if that just pulls in some small fish. Oh, there we go. That was a big... Alright, let's check that. Gotta check that. I'm not sure, you know. Could be something little on there. Yeah, we've got something. What have we got, eh? As suspected, little Mr. Whiting has joined the party. Alright, fish number one. A little whiting. Now, I'm pretty confident I can catch these all night if I need to. So I'm going to put this one back for now, but we might send some later if the bluey bait start to run low. But yeah, lovely. Fish number one. Off he goes. After much deliberation, about 5 seconds actually, I've decided the next whiting I catch, I'm going to send out as a live bait on this rod. Now the main reason I really put this scratching rig out actually was because the last time I came down to Cornwall, I did some fishing back in the summer, made a video. Which I'm sure some of you may have seen, and unfortunately blanked. So I was determined that this time fishing in Cornwall, the first thing to do, make sure I don't blank. And I've done that now. So now that I've not blanked, sorry, I've beaten the skunk, I can fish. And I can fish for what I really want to catch. I'm going to fish for a live bait, replace the rig on this one, take the scratching rig off, and we'll fish a whole bluey on one rig with the pulley pin all set up, and then we'll switch out for a big circle hook on this one with a live bait. Let's go for some proper fish, shall we? Okay, my other rod, the big one's been out for about half an hour now. So we're going to bring him in, check the bait, and replace this tip light, or the battery at least. Now, there's some weight on there, but I think it might just be... Oh, I don't actually know what it is. A bit of weed. Well, that's interesting. That whole bluey bait, which was sent out about half an hour ago, has been picked apart and only a spine showing. I don't know exactly what that was because I could feel it coming in. Crabs. I feel there was a crab clinging onto it as I brought it in, which was why there was a big dead weight, and he fell off as I was reeling. Which means that live bait is going to be even more important, I think, because that's 30 minutes and that bait's gone. With that being said, I am going to get it rebaited. I'll cast it into a slightly different area. Not that I expect that'll do much difference. If there's crabs here, it's going to be crabs here. But that was out there for around 30 minutes. Probably actually by the time I was dealing with that whiting, probably 40 minutes. So I'm going to bring the cast in every 20-25 because not all of the bait had gone. There was still a little bit of flesh left. So if I can be changing them every 20-25 minutes, I'm going to have enough bait in the water to be fishing properly. That's the plan. Flipping crabs, eh? Alright, well hopefully these crabs don't become too much of a pest all night. But we can fish around them, I think. Now I am conscious that I am on a small pier in a fairly small part of the estuary with some pretty hefty beach rods. And of course I could have got away with much smaller rods and a much smaller setup, but I wasn't quite sure where I was going to fish tonight. I was looking at a few beach marks. I was considering off Porthleven Pier and the key area there, Prass Sounds, but I settled here for some really nice, easy to access, easy to fish, no sand, which is always a bonus, especially when I haven't really got the proper facilities to wash all my gear down like I have at home. And yeah, this is about when the last few weeks I've been fishing the likes of Bristol Channel and Chesil Beach and stuff. This is about as easy as it gets for me. So I do feel spoiled. Time to check that bluey bait again. See if we've been crabbed out. My guess is we have. Let's see how we're looking. Okay, not as bad. There's a bit that's been shredded off, but we're nowhere near as bad as we were before. Now I have got a new rig to go straight on and replace that one. 25 minutes, I think, is the sweet spot for changing baits. There we go. Nice fresh bluey bait, ready to get sent out. Right, well, I was just about to say no bites on either of those two last casts, and that maybe, just maybe, I've jinxed myself by saying I can catch whiting all night and I'm confident I can catch them. Because normally if they're here in some numbers. But the last two casts came back obviously with nothing on them in terms of fish. But I've just tightened down into that pulley pennel, the bluey rig, and as I tightened, it had a fair few rattles on it. And of course they're 6/0 hooks, so if something's on that, it could be decent. But it's pretty still now, so I'll leave it to sit and we'll see what happens. Now, something me and Darren have been debating for the last few weeks, and I know as soon as he watches this he'll probably message me and say something, but when it comes to bait, I do not like throwing frozen bait out on a hook. I know lots of people do favour it, and I think you can get away with it if you're using really small baits like sand eel and that kind of stuff. And to be fair, even bluey, it's very thin, it's very mushy and defrosts quick. But if you're using big mackerel fillets, big squid, whole squid, for me, and I know a lot of people I see on YouTube give the advice of, keep your bait frozen, put it on the hook frozen, that kind of stuff. For me, I think it's one of the worst things you can do, especially if you're having to change your baits every 15-20 minutes like I am. Now for me, I like to defrost the baits just to the point where they're defrosted at the start of my session, but they're not warmed up, so those juices are still within the fish, within the bait, but haven't started to leak out, haven't started to ooze. There's a real sweet spot in my opinion where they're slightly defrosted, slightly frozen. Sending a bait out in that sweet spot means as soon as it hits the water, it's oozing those scents. It's oozing those oils, the scent out in the water. If you're throwing a bait out there that's completely frozen, it might take 5-10 minutes to defrost. And in the winter, when you're fishing really cold waters, maybe even longer, it can potentially half the time that your bait is actually putting really good scent out in the water. So I don't like to tell people on the channel how to fish. I think there's a million different ways to do it, and fish out whatever suits you best. But in my opinion, for me, I think don't send out completely frozen baits, defrost them appropriately. Unless, like I say, if it's little small sand eels, little worm baits, whatever, they'll defrost within seconds, really. But for big baits, get them defrosted. Now, just to show you what I mean by what state I like my baits in, this is a bluey which is just about defrosted. You can see it's moving, it's not frozen solid, and that's the bag it's come out of. There's a little bit of oil in there, just probably when it's been put in, but there's no juices sat in it. It's still within the bait, within the fish, but that is cold to the touch. It feels like it's come out of a fridge, like a really cold fridge, but it's nice and juicy, tons of juice, tons of bait in there. As soon as that hits the water, it's going to be fishing for me, and fishing how I want it to fish. If that was frozen solid, even that bait, I would say it would take a few minutes to defrost, and it's less fishing time, effective fishing time that I'm going to get. But that's just me. Now, something else that I want to do is, obviously I'm in a river, but the tide, the flow at the moment is flooding in, but it's not too strong. So these bits of scrap bait that I've got, I don't want to waste them. That's still good scent, that's still good bait. I mean, I could put that on a little hook and use those as kind of tipping baits almost, whipped on. But there's more scent in the water, it's chum basically. So I'm sticking them out there. Let's try and get some fish in and get them feeding. Oh, left rod again. I keep getting some real nice pull downs on my left rod, which is the big bait. It doesn't look like a conger or huss bait that I'm looking for, bite that I'm looking for, but they are nice bites. What I'm going to do, I'll get a new bluey hooked up onto this rig, and as soon as that's done, we'll bring that in and check it. That is one rig, rebaited, ready to recast. So we're going to bring this one in and see if there's anything on the end of it. I don't think so. Well, something's been at it again. It looks like crabs again. I don't know. Whatever it is though, isn't taking a hook. I think that one's a mix of crabs and whiting, to be honest. I really want that worm bait rod to go off again now, actually. Pull another whiting out. I'm definitely regretting not keeping that one from earlier. But that's how it goes sometimes, isn't it? A live bait now would be ideal. Right, well, the only thing I think I can start doing to help me out a little bit, oh Christ, is every 5 minutes, or even less than that actually, every few minutes, just twitch, wind the reel, a couple reels, and move that bait a metre or so closer in. What that means is obviously the crabs are going to have to keep shifting to try and find the bait, because they don't start hitting that bait until a few minutes after the bait's hit in the water, where they all kind of scuttle around and find it. So if I can keep that bait moving, it means it should stay in the water long enough to be fishing effectively. I think that's going to be my best bet. Oh wow. Check this out, guys. Well, there's the live baits that I'm after. Let's see if I can get them through from the jetty. Right, I've got a scrap of worm left on this hook. Let's see if it'll pick one out. That's crazy, guys. I'm assuming it's a little shoal of whiting. Oh. I'm looking at that worm bait. I actually want to take it. I want to be a little bit brave. If I can catch one of these fish, literally hanging my 14-foot beach casting rod off the edge of a pier, I think it might be one of the best achievements I've ever done in fishing, not gonna lie. Come on. One of you's got to want it. Oh, I wish I had a net with me. I could just net one up. Alright, I'm gonna leave them here. See if one will take it. We didn't manage to hook any of the little bait fish underneath the dock, but they're teasing me and I can still hear them splashing up and down now. but they don't want to take the worm hooks. So yeah, my fault for saying that earlier. However, some good news. Since rolling the baits every few minutes, just a few turns on the reel, the last one's come in pretty intact. I mean, there's a few chunks out of it where it's been nibbled away at slightly, but overall, that's still going to catch a fish. There's still enough scent, enough bait there for it to be working. So I'm going to continue with that method of just slowly rolling the baits in. I'm casting it maybe a few extra meters just to accommodate for that difference in or that difference in the cast, or the difference in where the bait will obviously sit as it's being slowly reeled in. So yeah, 3-4 meters extra on the cast will mean that every time I twitch it and come in a meter, it's still fishing in about the same area. Let's see if it pays off. Alright, well guys, we just had a really nice bite on the below rod, the right hand rod, the one that's quite bent over. Definitely wasn't a crab bite. We'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, there's a fish on that. What was that, eh? Alright, well that was in there for minutes. And as you saw, hopefully, I was getting some really positive bites. Oh, this is getting frustrating now. Oh, great bite on the left rod. Might be on, guys. Come on. Now the right rod's gone. Might miss that. Oh, it feels like something on. Well, I'm pretty certain there's shoals of whiting that keep coming through. And just, as you can see on the right hand rod, giving me really good bites. Now the pulley pen all set up, of course I don't expect to do much. But I'm surprised the little size 2 hook flapper rig isn't pulling more of them in. I just want the one. I'm not convinced though, there's not something on that right rod. So I'm just going to finish rebaiting the next rig, and then we might bring that in and check it. Honestly though, I mean, it's good fun fishing. It's frustrating, but the baits are in there for minutes before, I'm getting bites and such. It's just trying to figure out how to get the rigs and the baits in the water enough to fish for, some of the bigger fish that I want to really catch. Now, of course, using big hooks does that. Sorry, I should really be on camera when I'm talking to you. Big hooks does that, in the sense that you're not going to be hooking up to smaller fish all night, but you can get a lot of false bites, like I'm getting, with the fish are just really pecking away at your baits. I kind of wish I brought some squid with me, because it's a bit more firm bait, and it'd be able to put up with the whiting and the crabs pecking away at it, but beggars can't be choosers. And it's not something I've got with me. Oh, that was a nice bite. Right, what am I doing now? I'm in a right mess. Let's get this whipped on and check that. I do think there might be a fish on the end of it. Right guys, well, it's not a little pin whiting. Right, well, there we go. It's not a pin whiting. See if you can make sure you can see him. That is not a bad size whiting. Similar to the ones we were having Chesil last month actually. Unfortunately, no good for a live bait. A bit too big. But still, not a bad fish to catch. And now he is bleeding a fair amount. I will try and get him back, but there's a good chance I might have to take him for the table. I'll get some nice fillets off him, if not. But he has still got some life in him, so I'll see if I can't get him back. Right, this is what we're after. Double shot of whiting. And this one here is absolutely perfect. That is a perfect live bait. Let's get him out. Right, I've got more fish here than I can handle. The other bluey bait's gone off. I've got the 2 live bait fish in the water still, just on their hooks to keep them alive. The other one's ringing off, so that's got a fish on. Right, let's bring this in. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Right. So, the target species, an eel, looks to be in the area. A tangled up rig like that screams an eel. And with all these whiting flooding onto my baits, this is good. Right, I need to get this live bait sent out, because I think the target of an eel, or a bull huss, which is what I was here for, is on the cards. Let's make it happen, guys. Which is good actually, because I was down to my last bluey bait. I had 1 bluey left in the pack, and now I've got more whiting than I can throw a stick at. So the big whiting didn't go back. I'm going to gut him and then probably fillet him at home, but he's going to go for my dog, my little Frenchie, who loves a little fish dinner. Now I don't mind eating whiting myself actually. If you saw my video from Sandbanks a few weeks back with me and Darren, and I made whiting nuggets, which were delicious. So, especially when they're a decent size like that, you can get some good fish off them. Right, so here's my little live bait. And of course, like most whiting do, he's managed to get himself deep hooked, so he's probably not going to survive much longer, barely going to survive the cast. But I'm going to use this. I haven't got time to rig up a new live bait rig. I was looking through my tackle box to see if I had one ready, and I can't find it. But time's ticking, so we're going to make do. I'm going to take the circle hook of my pennel setup, and we're going to go just through the nostrils, like so. And then what I'm going to do is something a little bit out of the ordinary. That is my live bait rig, semi-live. Okay, so here's one of my live baits, which, to be fair, he was so deep hooked he's not alive anymore. But I've rigged him up on that pulley pennel setup with the main hook through the tail there, which is leaking a nice bit of blood, and the circle hook through his mouth. So we'll get him flung out. Fingers crossed the crabs keep off him. Alright, this is the other whiting that I managed to catch. A little bit smaller than the one from earlier. This is the one I'm definitely keeping. This guy, he's been in the water for the last 10 minutes. Deep hooked, so they probably won't go back. But I'm going to see if he does. If not, we'll use him for bait. But yeah, fish on, guys. Well, that second, the other whiting that didn't go back, I did try, genuinely, but they very rarely go back, especially if they've been gut hooked. So he's been chopped in half and stuck on a pulley pennel. That's of course the head half, which I've kind of flappered off to release loads of scent, and then I've got the tail half as well, which I can send out. But that is an absolutely delicious looking conger bait, and the fact that I've seen a rig come up that's been tangled up by an eel, and we've got shoals of whiting here, that's what they'll be feeding on. So let's see if we can't find one. We've got some big baits in the water now doing their thing. I will check them shortly just to make sure they're not still getting crabbed out, but there's a lot more flesh there for them to get through. But I'm going to sort out in the meantime my lovely dog's dinner. I'll gut him here and fill it in when I get home. But yeah, not a bad little session. Our last throw of the dice is fishing these big baits, of course, still, which are coming back pretty whole. I mean, this one, he's the little the whiting that we sent out earlier, and you can see his stomach has been kind of chewed out, but he's still pretty whole. Not bad. So we're sending out a cocktail bait with my last bluey and the tail half of that pouting. Sorry, the whiting. Let's get him sent out. Now, it's not going to come through on camera, but every so often we've got the tide flooding in. And obviously we're on a floating pontoon or jetty. That's you see these big steel metal girders here. Every so often the jetty's rising up. Obviously it's continuously rising up with the tide. And where it's rubbing against this metal girder, the whole thing's like rumbling. And I can feel the ground shake and a really deep rumble. And in these settings where it's pitch black, and I keep hearing eerie sounds everywhere, it's the most surreal experience. Cool, but creepy. Back in the car now. Unfortunately, those big baits didn't do much for me, but overall still a really fun session. Nice to tick off a new mark for me. Finally can say I fished the River Fal after all these times coming down to Cornwall. I'll be back down here in springtime actually, so I'll have to either come back down here to give it another shot, or I'll find a new mark for me to fish next time I'm here in Cornwall. But it's about midnight now, so I need to head back. I've got a long drive back to Dorset tomorrow, which is Friday, but you'll see me out again. Well, you won't see me then, but I'm back out again on the beaches on Saturday with Darren, back in Dorset, hitting up a local mark to us. Me and Darren are actually going to take his lad out for his first time ever fishing, so hopefully that'll make a nice video and we'll see if we can get him a nice little fish or two. All there is left to say though, guys, is this video is coming out on New Year's Day, so happy New Year's. I hope you've all had a fantastic festive break, a nice relaxed easy one. If you've been out, managed to get some fishing done in the weather windows that we've had, I hope they've been fruitful, I hope they've been enjoyable, but most importantly, thank you, a massive thank you for all the support I've had, whether it's been very small, whether you just liked or watched a video, or if you've been commenting, if you've been subscribing, whatever it might be over the last 12 months. My channel has grown quite modestly over the last year or so, but it has grown, it's been progress, which I'm extremely thankful for, honestly, more than you know. It's been really good fun to kind of watch the channel grow, put content out there, starting to meet people out on some of my local marks that watch the videos. It's fantastic, so I really enjoy putting the content, the videos out there, and it's amazing that, you know, some of you guys are engaging with them and supporting the channel as it grows. So here's to a great 2025. I've got loads in store, loads of stuff, loads of big trips and other things kind of that I'm working on in the background to try and make the whole Seasmith channel even bigger in 2025. Bigger fish, bigger plans, bigger adventures, all that kind of stuff. You'll definitely see me back down Cornwall. You'll see me a lot of times around Dorset. We'll be out on the boat, and there's some bigger trips beyond that as well being planned, so keep an eye out for that. Anyway, thanks again, happy new year, and I'll see you soon.